Let's talk a little bit about height of an object. Let's say a ball in this case. So we've got a ball that's being thrown upwards. Ball is thrown upwards from a building. Top, of course, of the building. The height to be in feet after t seconds is given by this formula. S equals negative 16t squared plus 112t plus 144. That's our formula. So you plug in a time, and S is the height, of course. T is the time, but S is the height. Okay? All right, the first sort of problem on this will just be find the height problem. Find the height after 3 seconds. What would be the height after 3 seconds? Well, just plug it in, right? Do another one real quick. Yeah. What is the 3? Where does the 3 go? That's the time. Yeah. T is 3, so I've got the S is negative 16 times 3 squared plus 112 times 3 plus 144. Yeah, this one's just substituting in the end. There's nothing really to solve other than calculate. That'd be negative 16 times 9, so it'd be a negative 144 plus, what would be 336 plus 144. That's going to work out nicely to be 336. All right. Now, the picture here, you got your building, and got your little guy here throwing it, or girl, doesn't have to be a guy, but throwing that ball. So the ball here, rising up, gets us to... after 3 seconds, it's 336 feet. Tall, high. All right, so yeah, if you're given the seconds, just plug in those values and get the height. Now, at some point, right, it's got to peak and start coming back down, and so eventually you get down to ground level, but here's the other sort of problem. It is, by the way, this is quadratic, isn't it? Because it is t squared. So this is a quadratic formula, quadratic in form there. All right, but number 2, let's do this. We're interested to know when is the ball at a height of 100 feet. When is the ball at a height of 100 feet? Well, in this case there, what's the 100? Where does the 100 go? That's an S, yeah. That's a height, so that's not time. I don't plug that in for t. That's an S. So in the formula here, I plug that in for S. So that's a whole other ball game here. If I plug in the S to be 100, I get 100 equals negative 16t squared plus 112t plus 144. Okay. How am I going to solve that? Well, that is, now we're talking a quadratic equation. I can't just evaluate that. This is a quadratic equation. I've got a t squared in my equation. So what do I need to do for this type? Make one side 0. Yeah, so subtract 100 and make it 0 equals negative 16t squared plus 112t plus 44. Some of these possibly do factor, but a lot of times they won't. So, yeah, let's just use the quadratic formula. A is going to be negative 16, B is going to be 112, C is going to be 44. Just do that. Start us off here. And we know quadratic formula. And I'm going to need more space. All right, so yeah, the quadratic formula tells me the time then, t instead of my x, I've got t, is going to be, what is it? Minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Which will give me, in this case, minus b would be minus 112 plus or minus square root of b squared would be 112 squared minus 4 times a, which is negative 16, times c, which is 44, all over 2 times a, which is negative 16. All right? Let's go right here. So that's going to give me t equal negative 112 plus or minus 112 squared, which is 544, right? Minus, actually plus, wouldn't it? Negative 14 times negative 16 is going to be positive 64. And then times it by 44, that's going to give me a positive 2816 over negative 32. So here's what I get. Negative 112 plus or minus the square root of 12,544 plus 2,816. 15,360 divided by negative 32. Okay. Well, we could spend a little time and simplify that, but I did forget to mention how I wanted the answer here. Let's tack on to this. Give the answer to 2 decimal places. 1 or 2. Depends on what they want, or 3. Yeah, all right. So I want to give the answer to 2 decimal places. We haven't done this with the quadratic formula yet, so let me talk about that. If I want to take this to 2 decimal places, you know, originally when we were doing the quadratic formula, when you're solving those equations like that, you're just going to simplify this. But when you're maybe doing an application, you may want, because, you know, this is the time in seconds, that doesn't just... You can't just look at that and say, well, that's 2 seconds there, or 3 seconds. So it makes sense here to round this to 2 decimal places. Here's how we do that. All you have to do is round, instead of simplifying this, we're just going to round the square root of 15,360 to 2 decimal places. Also, just use your calculator there. Round that 15,000. What is it? 15,360. Round that off. Oh, did it wrong. Okay. Square root. What is it? 123.94. Does everybody see where we got that? Just type in square root on your calculator. Square root of, yep, square root of that. Okay, well, now that gives me two answers, doesn't it? It gives me the negative 112 plus the 123.94 and the 112 minus 123.94. Let's see what both of those give me. Negative 112 plus 123.94 divided by negative 32. And it also gives me a negative 112 minus 123.94 divided by negative 32. All right, so if we do this one, that gives me, what does that give me? Well, it gives me, yeah, better do it. 11.94 divided by negative 32. That's going to give me, since I'm dividing a positive by a negative, that's going to give me a negative answer. Negative 0.37. And as far as time goes, well, it's like length and height. Is negative going to work? No. Since it's a negative, we're going to throw that one out. What I get over here, let's see what I get over here. I don't get a negative there, do I? I get a negative 112 minus 123.94. Gives me a negative 235.94 divided by negative 32, which is negative divided by negative. Yeah, that one's going to work a lot better. It's a positive 7.37. That's a good answer. We're talking time in seconds. So it'll be 7.37 seconds to reach that height. Question or concern? That's a little longer one, isn't it? Let's do another one, just to see, because I got another another little point here, or two to make. All right, let's do it. That was 100 feet. Let's do 200 feet. 100 feet, let's remember, hits it once at 7.37 seconds. Times it by 2? Let's see if that works. That'd be a lot easier, wouldn't it? All right, number 2. Number 2 is, yeah, when is the height 200 feet? And I don't think it's double. All right. So again, I've got the S is 200, right? The height. So I've got to replace the 200 by S. Same deal though, I've got to make one side 0. So I wind up with 0 equals negative 16t squared plus 112t. Be minus 56. Now, I'm going to notice here that we can go ahead and plug in A, B, and C right there. But if you notice something about this, these definitely are divisible by 2, aren't they? And it turns out they're divisible by 4, and they're divisible by 8, the highest factor. So to make numbers a little smaller, let's divide everything by, let's go with the 8. I mean, you can do it with 2 or 4. Yeah, just divide everything by 8 there. Of course, 0 divided, that's not going to change that. That's going to be a minus 2t squared. That'll be a plus 14, I think. 14t, and that'll be minus 7. Dividing everything by negative 8 just makes the numbers a little bit smaller. So if you see that, that was the little tip there. Okay, so A is going to be negative 2, B is going to be 14, C is going to be negative 7. All right, that's going to bring up another point here. So T, by the quadratic formula, is going to be minus B would be minus 14, plus or minus square root of B squared, 14 squared, minus 4 times A, which is negative 2, times C, which is negative 7, all over 2 times A, which is 2 times negative 2. All right, see what that gives me. That gives me negative 14 plus or minus square root of 14 squared is 196. Now this one has something different in it, the way it worked out. This one has, the 4AC is minus 4 times minus 2 times minus 7. That has 3 minuses. And when you have 3 minuses, the result winds up being positive or negative. It winds up being negative again, yeah. 2 negatives make a positive, but 3 negatives make a negative. So that would be negative 4 times negative 2, positive 8 times negative 7 be negative 56, wouldn't it? Over negative 4. So we get minus 14 plus or minus the square root of 140 divided by negative 4. Same instructions here, though. Let's go 2 decimal places. It'll say that in our instruction. I just keep forgetting to write that. 2 decimal places, so what would be next? Let's round that square root off. Square root of 140, 11.8. So negative 14 plus or minus 83. 11.83, divide that by negative 4. Well, that's going to give me negative 14 either plus 11.83 divided by negative 4 or negative 14 minus 11.83 divided by negative 4. What does that do for us? Well, negative 14 plus 11.83, isn't that 2.17? Negative? Divided by negative 4. Isn't that right? Check me on that. I think that's right. But it is a negative. And a negative divided by negative is a positive, so this is going to wind up being 0.54, yeah. Positive. So that's going to be a good answer. And then negative, that's going to be a negative 25.83 divided by negative 4. That's going to be a 6.46. Both of those are in seconds. Either one of those not make sense? Both of those make sense. In this case, there are 2 times when the height is 200 feet. How can that be? Well, turns out the building height actually is this number. It's 144 feet tall. That's how tall the building is from top to bottom. That last number tells you that. But the reason it hits 200 is because, how does it hit 200? It hits it on the way up and then on the way down. Yeah, it hits 200 at 2 different times. Once on the way up and then once on the way down. It goes higher than 200 feet. Yeah, obviously we had one that was 336 feet, so we know it went higher than 200 feet. Now, why was it only hitting 100 feet one time? Well, does it hit 100 feet on the way up, other than when the guy's carrying it up there? No. No, after he throws it, it only hits it coming down, doesn't it? Because the building starts at 144, so it only hits 100 feet once on the way down. All right, so anyway, it's a little physics problem.